It is inside G2E, the Global Gaming Expo, presented by the AGA, the American Gaming Association, right here on Sports Grid. I'm Brady Kannon, and we are now joined by Ramiro Atucha. He is the president of the Ramiro Autcha Advisory Company. It's a pleasure having you on board here, sir. Thank you very much for joining us. And off air, I was just saying, okay, so what do you do exactly? And it's a wonderful background, a very interesting background. You've worked all over the world in, basically the regulation gaming space, as far as I understand. And now, because of that experience, with all this movement into Latin America, you're a great person to consult on this type of thing, and thus the advent of the Ramiro Autcha Advisory Company.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot for having me here. It's a pleasure. And yes, I've been 20 years in the gambling industry. Initially, the first years on the regulated European and American market through my first company, Leander Games. And the second phase since 2020 with my second company, Vibra Gaming, with a regulated Latin American market. And I believe I understand pretty well the standards, the requirements of the American public, European regulated companies, and what their concerns are when coming into Latin America. It's challenging. Every time you go to a new place, to a new country, identifying the right people, understanding, where to go, how to go, is always a concern. And I've been helping a few companies doing that, in a safe way and with the right steps, I would say.
Talk to me, Ramiro, and the audience, obviously, about regulation. That sounds to me like the rules, right? Dig us deeper into regulation and setting up regulation in a country or a jurisdiction. What does all that entail?
Well, first is identifying the markets where the operator wants to get established or where the supplier wants to grow based on their offering, right? Once that's identified, also seeing what the appetite is. There are different levels of regulations. So it really depends on that appetite and depending on that, how to proceed into that market. Regulation in Latin America is evolving. So it's also a matter of understanding what are the odds of that. For example, Brazil recently regulated. Now it's talking about new changes about that regulation. So navigating that, considering what's going to happen next, is a key element to make a decision there.
In Europe, is it pretty much complete as far as regulation versus the United States? It seems like it's incomplete because we don't have states where everything is legal just yet.
Correct. The US is similar. I'm originally from Argentina, right? Argentina is similar to the US in terms of it being state by state.
Okay.
Right? US, same thing. State by state, still some states remaining to be regulated, a lot of room for growth, also a lot of consolidation. Something similar is happening to Argentina. The rest of the markets, Colombia, Mexico, Brazil, is more country-wise, which is a much interesting approach, I would say.
And you're saying that the wave is kind of now getting into South America and Latin America. Is that correct?
Correct. I think that there's an element of natural growth. I think we need to look for a combination here. The Latin American operators, they understand the players, they understand the player base, what the players like, but Latin American operators do not have the experience that long-standing American or especially European, when it comes online, have with the operation of online casinos or online sportsbook, etc. So there needs to be a combination there. Of course, there's a bit of over-regulation in Europe, also in the US. So you have lots of operators looking for other places to grow, where
it might be easier to do business.
Exactly.
Okay, and you're kind of guiding those people in the right directions per your recommendation?
Well, I see them looking into Latin America and sometimes struggling to understand how to best proceed and what precautions to take.
Right.
Or what precautions may be too much. If you're looking at it through the lenses of a regulated or public American company, it's very difficult to do business elsewhere. So there are different layers of gray that need to be understood based on the appetite of the operators.
You've attended G2E, I imagine, for many years.
2009 was my first time.
Wow.
And haven't missed it ever since.
Oh, that's great. So, how have your goals changed? I know you've changed companies here and there. You've started new companies. What's the difference when you first attended here to what you're trying to accomplish now?
Well, it's been changing a lot, but here you saw the innovation. We came from online and we're looking for innovation here. Land-based was everything. Now, the distribution of the pie between online and land-based have changed dramatically since then. And right now I would say that innovation is a bit more driven by online than from land-based.
Right.
So the way it has shaped this event in particular and what you can expect to see here has been, very interesting.
What's the most exciting thing for you in the gaming world that is on the horizon possibly?
I think allowing a good, happy medium between regulation and what the players want. My concern normally...
Imagine that, huh?
Well, the challenge you have is, if regulation is too restrictive, there's always a black market that players go to find what's not found there. And it's not that the black market or unregulated is all crooks with that they won't pay. There are companies that are regulated elsewhere. So I always vouch for making sure that the regulated operators remain competitive, because that's the main way to compete against unregulated operators, right?
That's a great point that you bring up, and it seems like there's a real battle going on right now in the United States between regulated sports books and unregulated offshore sports books. Are we able to somehow bring that together or bridge that gap?
We have to, and I think it requires a combination of things. First, empowering the regulated operators. They have invested in a license, they invested in compliance. You cannot limit their offering. So if their offering, their promotions are competitive, it's easier to compete. Why would a player go to an unregulated one if they got all that they need in the regulated one? That combined with enforcement will work.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It is Ramiro Atucha. Check out his advisory company. Again, strategic advisor for the Ramiro Autcha Advisory Company. Thank you very much for joining us again here on Sports Grid.
Thank you so much. Pleasure.